It was, the plan was we were going to eat around 1 o'clock so that we could be on the road by 2, no later than 2:30. It was, I believe, Super Bowl weekend, Friday afternoon traffic, a bunch of stuff going on in Atlanta. And, obviously we don't want to be late to the jail, given the importance of me being on time. I was walking from the kitchen. I had just left the kitchen from keeping her company while she was making the spaghetti when I heard a very loud knock at the front door. We weren't expecting any visitors. So I went to the front door and I opened it. And there were 2 individuals there, 2 men, and they both were pointing pistols at me. And they told me to let them in.
So what'd you do?
I let them in. I had never seen these guys before, and they were pointing pistols at me, so I let them in. I let them in. They shut the door. About this time, my mother came to the foyer where I was standing with these 2 individuals, and they said, head to the basement and don't say an effing word.
So did you go to the basement?
The taller of the individuals, he was older, probably in his 50s, about 6 feet, athletically built, walked past me, put the gun at my mother's lower back, and she started to head towards the stairway to the basement. The fact they said head to the basement led me to think they knew we had a basement and had cased the house before. The younger of the men, he's probably about 5'8", 5'9", shoulder-length brown hair, pudgy. He put his gun on my back and we followed them. She opened the stair door to the basement, flicked on the light. It was a two-step process to get down those stairs. You had 4 or 5 steps that went down. There's a landing, and then you make the turn, and there's the longer flight of stairs. They proceeded first. My mother was crying. She was making sounds like she might be wanting to scream or shout. And as they made the turn on the landing and took those first few steps, by this point, I and the guy behind me who had the gun on my back made it to the landing. He told her to shut the F up and pushed her down the stairs.
And then what happened to your mother?
It was the worst sound I've ever heard in my life. She plunged headlong into the wall. It's a sound I can hear to this day as I'm sitting here. And I could tell that there was a dent or a hole in the wall. She was trying to get up and move around, but from my vantage point, she appeared like she couldn't get her balance.
Was your mother injured at that time?
She certainly appeared to be. And as I moved like I was going to try to go down the stairs, the guy dug the pistol into my back and grabbed my shoulder. The gentleman who pushed her down the stairs put his pistol behind his back into the back part of his jeans. He ran down the stairs, turned the corner, and came back with the 35-pound weight that has been seen during the course of this trial.
And where did the knife come from?
Well, the knife came later. This monster took this dumbbell and proceeded to bludgeon my mother right in front of me. And she stopped moving at this point. He then told the man who had his pistol in my back to bring me down to the bottom of the stairs. They shoved me over to the tile where the dumbbell rested. And then the older guy took off up the stairs. He came back a few minutes later with the kitchen knife and proceeded to stab my mother repeatedly in front of me. I cannot believe what I was seeing. I didn't understand what would be the purpose because she wasn't moving. Why is any of this happening? It was a complete and utter nightmare.
So what did you do during this time?
There's nothing I could do. I had a pistol to my back. I couldn't believe this was happening. I had no clue who these people were or why they were doing this to us. So he stabbed her with such force that the handle broke off the knife. I didn't realize at the time that the knife was still stuck in my poor mother's face. He put the handle down on the tile across from the dumbbell. He then turned and looked at me, and he pulled out his cell phone. And he proceeded to show me a picture of my ex-wife dropping Mia off at her school, a picture of Jack being dropped off or picked up at Lovett, a picture of them all getting out of her van at their rental home in Marietta, and a picture of her either coming or going from her clinic in Vinings. And he said, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, if you say a single word, they're next. I had no doubt who they were or what next meant. And then they left.
And then, did you call the police?
No, I did not call the police.
Why not?
Because I just witnessed an unimaginable act of violence. 2 unimaginable acts of violence. And then a man coldly looked at me after he's standing over the body of my dear mother that he skewered and bludgeoned, and shows me pictures of my family. So no, I did not call the police.
How much longer did you stay there?
I stood there numb and incapable of moving for what seemed like minutes. These guys had left. I went upstairs. All I could think about was Janine and the kids and what these monsters could do. And I went and got a small backpack out of my room. I put a few clothes. I didn't pack much. Some basic toiletries. And I left.
Why did you take your mother's car?
I took my mother's car because it had more gas in it than my car. It had a bigger tank. And I had no idea where I was going or where I was going to end up. And it seemed to me in that state of mind that at least her car would be easier to sleep in. And that's why I took her car.
So where'd you go?
When I left her house, I went out of the neighborhood. I don't even know what time of day it was when I left, but I went out of the neighborhood. I made a right and went up, I believe it's called Rock Bridge, but it becomes Five Forks Strick, and we're right at the DeKalb County, Gwinnett County line. And I made a left. I'm not sure if it was Arcata or Killian Hill, but up by the Kroger there, and just started heading towards 85.
Now, how much time did it take you to get to Nashville? Is that where you go? Did you go straight to Nashville?
No, I didn't go all the way to Nashville in one shot. No, I ended up going to the QT station at Indian Trail in 85. I stopped to get a couple bottles of water, some snacks. I only had $18 cash on me. I topped off the tank, I believe, put some gas in it, and then I proceeded towards Cobb County, towards 285, and then ultimately to 75.
Why did you cut your monitor off?
Well, the reason I cut my monitor off is I was concerned by the time I got north of Cobb County. I was within, I believe, an hour or so of when I was supposed to report. I had no idea if just by routine the monitoring people were watching me or not. So that's why I headed towards Cobb County. I didn't want to do anything that would get me involved with the police because I didn't want it to come back to hurt my family if these guys found out and thought I had said something.
Now, why did you take both phones?
For that very reason. I had every reason to believe, based on this horrific event, that these individuals had a lot of hate for me, had been following me and or my ex-wife and kids, and perhaps they had our numbers, perhaps they were the ones who had been calling and hanging up. I didn't know. I wanted to have the phones in case they had demands. If they went back to the house, I had to know what was going on. And if Janine called either myself or my mother, I wanted to know what was going on with her, that she was okay, that the kids were okay. So that's why I took both phones.
So how long did it take you to get to Nashville?
Ultimately, I probably got to Nashville. I mean, I think they're an hour behind, but I ended up in Nashville after dark. Of course, it was wintertime, so it gets dark early everywhere, but it was probably 7, 8 o'clock Central Time by the time I actually got there.
And why did you stay in Nashville?
Nashville is a big city. I had no more money to buy gas, and it seemed like a safe place to pull off and park and try to figure out what in the world was going on.
And eventually, did you get a job in Nashville?
Yes, I got a job at a bar called Betty's Bar and Grill on the west side of Nashville.
And you heard yesterday, well, last week from Kelly Richardson. And how'd you meet Kelly?
I met Kelly online.
And did you start living with Kelly?
Fairly quickly, yes.
Were the two of you in a relationship?
Yes.
Did she know who you were?
No, she did not.
And why didn't you tell her?
I did not tell her because, again, in my mind, with how horrific the events of my mother's murder were, how graphic the people were capable of such insane violence, I had to believe that they would keep their word and take it out on my ex-wife and my children if anything was said. So I adopted a new identity, and I made a vow to myself that I would never reveal who I was. And there were many, many times I wanted to Kelly, but I wanted to tell her that I was accused of a murder I did not commit. But I didn't, because I didn't want to endanger her, and I didn't want to endanger Janine and the kids.
Now, Kelly, did you and Kelly ever have any problems, anything violent between the two of them?
No, absolutely not.
She was telling us that around about the date in which you got arrested, that she wanted you to move out or stay somewhere else. What was going on there?
Kelly, at the time, was a PhD student in chemistry, and she had a lot of work to do, and she needed her space. It wasn't relationship space. It was, hey, just go find somewhere else to be for a day or two so I can get my project done. That's all it was.
Now, by that time, what happened to the car?
I want to say it was a Wednesday or Thursday before I got arrested. I got arrested Monday, September 30th, 2019 in Nashville by the marshals. I want to say Thursday the 26th, I woke up. I believe Kelly was already in class or at her lab, and the car was gone. Kelly lived in an attic apartment in an old house on 18th Avenue near the university, and I didn't know it, but apparently there were a lot of break-ins, and learned after the fact that the car had been broken into, and during investigation of it by the Vanderbilt police, the car got towed, and that's what ultimately led to my capture. So I woke up, walked out, the car was gone.
So did you have anywhere to stay with the car being gone?
Not right off the bat, no.
Tell us how you ended up getting arrested.
Yeah, on that Monday, I was, the weather was starting to change in Nashville. It was getting cool at night. I was walking in West Nashville in an area called Sylvan Park where Betty's was and a few other places that I knew. And there was the old Southern thrift shop, which I had bought good cheap clothes before. And I was just looking for a light jacket because I didn't have one. And as I was done browsing through the store, I didn't see one. I started to walk out, and next thing I knew, I was surrounded by 5 or 6 marshals, and my face was in the floor, looking up at them. And they told me I was under arrest.
So, Richard, getting back to February 1st.
Yes.
Did you kill your mother? Absolutely
not. I loved my mother. She stood by me. I'm not a violent person. Never laid a finger on anybody.
We'll be in recess for 10 minutes.